Welcome and thanks for joining me again at Barely Creative. Last episode, I promised to talk about my favorite ad for H1 2025, and that's exactly what we're doing today. Let's be honest, it's not hard to like an ad, right? Some say that we see thousands of ads every single day, but still super rare for a campaign to nail every single aspect from strategy to insight, from timing to placement, from idea to execution. Correct? So this is it. I mean, this, in my opinion, is the best ad I've seen so far this year. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Legacy Tab. As always, let's do a brief intro into the background and how it all came to life before we go behind the scenes. Legacy, in case you don't know, it's an Australian charity supporting veteran families after the loss or injury of their loved ones. They teamed up with VML to launch Legacy Lager. It's a symbolic beer for fallen veterans. The campaign came to life in pubs and bars in New South Wales around November 2024, where you could simply tap your phone at this custom-made Legacy Lager tap to buy this virtual beer and show your appreciation. And by appreciation, I mean to make a donation. Right? You can also see these retro-style posters featuring real heroic stories from real people during the war that's been placed around the venues. And that's the thing, right? Now, if you listen to episode 1, you know that we always start by unpacking the problem to find the challenge. According to the case study on VML's website, Legacy faced challenges modernizing its fundraising efforts, especially with younger demographics. Plus, the act of remembrance has largely become confined to specific dates like the Anzac Day or the Remembrance Day. They needed a way to keep the memory of veterans alive year round while continuing to support their families. So, to fix those problems, there are basically two things we need to do. First, we need to strengthen the connection with younger audiences. And second, we need to expand remembrance into more of like a everyday moments, right? If we reframe these into a client brief, it'll be something like, how do we make remembrance feel personal, social, and easy to act on without losing its meaning? Right? Why do I add the last bit? Because, most of the times, like we see this in advertising more than we want, right? When brand wants to win over an audience so badly, they forget who they are and they start to make things up. What would you say if a brand like Legacy suddenly went rebrand into neo pink and start to upload trending short videos all over the place? Right? That'd be a disaster. So, younger demographics, how do we talk to them? Like, how do we build this connection? I guess the biggest gap here is, this is only my assumption, is that young people today are not personally connected to war history, right? They didn't grow up hearing stories from grandparents about wars. They pretty much just, saw it on TV. So they might think, like it's sad, it's a tragedy, but it's not about me. Also, unlike brands like Guide Dogs or the Salvos, right? Legacy was still like what they were doing there, supporting veteran families, is a pretty niche market, and it's very closely tied to the Remembrance Day and the Anzac Day, and that those are the 2 days in a 12 month time frame like people talk about wars, right? And to many young people, that means, I don't know, 1 minute of silence before they go back to whatever they were doing. So overall, there are gaps to fill in branding, engagement, clarity, and availability. Now, I'm not saying this, Gen Z and millennials that they don't care. They care deeply. I don't know if you remember when, like a couple of years back, when everyone thought young people wouldn't be bothered with the postal vote of the same-sex marriage, that they'd be too lazy or disorganized. But they actually flipped the story, right? They rallied, they ran meme campaigns on social media, and they made it like really personal and delivered one of the clearest yes outcome this country has seen. So that's how much they can care, right? So if you want to talk to them, I mean, my advice would be, like sit down and take off your suit, right? Don't play games, and be straightforward. If you really believe in what you are doing, just, tell them and let them be the judge. Now that leads us to the message and the medium. Like after we understand where the gap is and how could we potentially address those, and now it's time to think about like what exactly we're going to say, and where and when and how exactly we're going to deliver it. Right? We already know not to play games, so just stop playing guilt traps, like no guilt tripping them, and stop saying like $10 can change lives, because they know exactly that that's just about lowering the entry point, right? And again, given the nature of the brand, we obviously don't want to honor someone who didn't make it home over I don't know, like a 6 second short video, right? So what can we do? What do our Gen Z and millennials feel both personal and social? Think about the place and timing. And is there a place that can be associated with war, but not so much about the concept of war itself? This is completely me taking a guess, but I'm willing to bet $100 that some genius in the room just raised their hand and asked, like, what about a bar? Like, how about we buy them a beer? Look, this is actually like the process of generating this kind of idea is never linear, right? All of the work that went into strategy, research, and analysis were there to inspire and to provide directions for our creative folks, and so they can do their magic. From that point onward, there are still like countless possibilities of how exactly it'll be presented to the client. So in this case, for someone to be able to jump to this idea, most people will say it's gut feeling, but I prefer to call it creativity. Let me read one of the lines for you, right? July 1918. Trapped in one of the bloodiest battles in history, Dennis put himself in line of fire to lead thousands of his brothers to safety. 105 years later, you can now buy him around. Man, I freaking love this copy. It speaks to me directly and genuinely. And since you can't see the poster, let me tell you this, like nothing on the poster is yelling at you, right? You might be there, like you might be in the bar for whatever reason, it's a family gathering or you're meeting with your mates, or even it's a date, right? They're not trying to take that away from you. They're not trying to hijack your night and saying, like, hey, here, look at me, I need help. They are just, quietly hanging there and telling their stories, right? And trying to earn your respect. And maybe this just me being a little bit sentimental, but this actually reminds me of the end scene of Saving Private Ryan. When old Ryan was standing at Captain Miller's grave and say, "Tell me I've led a good life." Right? That's the energy of this campaign. There was no guilt, no marketing spin, just 100% dignity and pride. And you think that's it? No. This would have been a 7 out of 10 if it ended right there. What really completed this campaign is the medium. Imagine you were standing in front of the poster and reading the stories, getting all emotional, and suddenly they ask you to scan a QR code. Or worse, like visit our website at www. I can't even like imagine it. It'll freaking ruin everything, right? It'll become a complete waste of both the strategy and the insight. Now, instead, what they did, like what VML did, was they thought about what would happen next and carefully wrapped the brand around the whole customer journey using this legacy tab, right? It's like they made sure that their audiences will stay in the zone, like in this branded realm until the very end. So it's a brilliant creative use of Medium, and it's also a perfect example of how connection planning fuels creativity. Now, both concepts, brand experience and connection planning, are not new. But they don't always play well together, right? And here is why. In the real world, brand experience and connection planning often they sit on different sides of the process. You have your, communication agency or creative agencies focus on how the brand should feel, tones, values, and you have your media agency looks at where and when it shows up, right? Channels, placement, and pacing. So often they don't talk enough. So that's why we see, so many campaigns that you think they are disconnected. You got this beautiful message trapped in the wrong format, or a good call to action, but then you land somewhere like weird with like a terrible landing page, for example. So how do we fix it? Well, there are a lot of existing frameworks and philosophies we could adapt to. Touch points over channels, medium as message, behavior in, brand out. Let me give you an example so you don't get confused. Let's say you are working on a brief for a TAFE, right? Who wants more people to sign up for their, 1 year training program, right? So you can get a job. At the connection planning stage, you should already have a really good understanding of your audiences, right? Where they live, who are they, what they care about, and etc. Right? So close your eyes and imagine yourself as one of them. You wake up and check your phone. You see some thank you but unfortunate emails from the jobs you applied for. Get a bit frustrated, and then you see some more notifications. Then you put down your phone and get up, right? Probably listen to some podcasts and radios while getting yourself ready. Then you're on your way to your shift, waiting at the bus stop and then at train station. You keep scrolling your phone and occasionally checking the time, take a quick look around, uh, see some digital panels, see some billboards, but nothing catches your attention. So you go back to your phone and so on and so on, right? I'm not going to do the whole thing, but you feel free to do it at another time, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that by doing this, you are prioritizing behaviors over media mix. You didn't jump straight into the media consumption patterns of your audiences. Instead, you created this space to think about how each touch point lands, right? How the message is received, missed, rejected, taught to others, or even get laughed at, right? And at the same time, there's also space for you to think about, how you're going to apply your brand to this experience. When should I cut in? And is there something for me to build this connection? And is there something for me to kind of attach my brand to? Because you don't want to just squeeze your message in the process, right? Like you want people to think positively about your brand, think positively about this whole experience. The more details you can consider, the more gaps you can close, and the more cohesive of a brand experience you can deliver. Um, to quickly recap, this campaign was built on strong audience insights and a clear strategy that allowed the right message to meet the right moment. And to ensure the brand experience delivered on the insight, VML invented the medium to bridge the idea and the action. The result? A 431% boost in donations and $4.2 million in earned media. Right? It all happened with a budget of just 30K. And even better, like they spent 20K out of this on research and development, and there was like only $10,000 on media and production. $10,000. Can you fucking believe it? I mean, that's ridiculous. Guys, when you look at something like this, How can you not be romantic about advertising? Wait, did I just reference Malibu? Hmm. Um, Now, the takeaway, I really hope you take the whole package away this time, right? Because this is the kind of advertisement that made me want to become a strategist when I was a kid. Of course, I'm not saying that this is the only way to advertise, right? We don't always get 12 months of research time. And in fact, I never had that luxury, right? But even in hardcore performance campaigns, we can still do A/B test, right? We can still optimize the consumer journey. We can rethink landing pages. We can break away from the default channel mix, and we can invent something new, like VML did this time, right? All we need to do is think. People who know me know I love cooking, right? And one reason I love it is because you can always improve on the results, right? The knives, the pans, temperature, marinade, season, topping, and every little step can take the final dish to the next level. And there will be a point when you need to know more information, right? What's the occasion? Who is coming? What's their favorite dishes that you can use as a reference? And do they have any allergies? Right? And that's when, if we go back to the agency setting, that's when you want to talk to your media team, your creative team, your production team, your data lead, right? That's when you want to call your clients, ask to speak to their product manager, visit one of their retail shops, and so on. And there's so much you can do if you just think. All right, time flies. And we're about to wrap up. Again, drop me an email. Let me know what you think. Let me know what else you want to hear. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time.